This panel discussion will be focusing on the Government of India's initiative towards launching, formation and promotion of 10,000 FPOs. This is perhaps, shall we say, the first ever institutionalized approach towards FPO promotion in the country, where we have an integrated interventions by a range of implementing agencies. We have a national program management agencies. We have excellent CBBOs, cluster-based business organizations beyond RIs who are working in implementing at the field level, and very close and intense monitoring. I remember even yesterday, there were 4 joint secretaries checking up on CBBO's performance from Ministry of Agriculture. And this goes at the FPO level, every FPO. So very dedicated and focused approach, considerable volumes and resources being expended by the Government of India, about 6,300 crores, almost $1 billion. So something that we are looking at, the government is looking at as an excellent model for replication and dissemination too over the coming couple of years. Now, in terms of the 10,000 FPO program, more than about, if I'm not mistaken, more than about 2,600 FPOs have already been allocated to CBBOs across the nation. Another 2,600 odd FPOs may be allotted this year, and the project would be ongoing. And what we find is it has been the project and program is being implemented in a war footing, I should say. The deliverables and timelines are very stringent. And even in fact, the CBBOs are not working in a typical, shall I say, team-based contract module. They are working in based on delivery-based initiatives. So we have 2 months for baseline survey, another month for registration of FPOs, preparation of business plans, then getting into implementation of business plans in terms of input shops, in terms of market connect, in terms of credit linkages, etc. So meaning a very professional approach that is being implemented now. And question now is, with the experts that we have here, are there learnings based on our expertise that we could incorporate into the new program and also recommend to the government? And are also there learnings with the program as it is being evolved now, the last few months across the country? We will start off the interaction with Ramanaji, I should say, doyen in the field and representing Samunnati at the moment for this interaction. In terms of one question, Ramanaji, one most important question. A critical gap has been with regarding to funding of FPOs. So we have a credit guarantee scheme. We have norms of NABARD. We have norms of SFAC through which we've been implementing. But in many cases, what we find is an NBFC steps in and takes the lead, including in projects like the World Bank supported project in Maharashtra, where I think out of the credit linkages we had done, more than 50% was Sammunnatis. So, and many of them did not even have audited statements, no credit guarantee. It may be working capital and term loan also. So question now is, how should ideally creditworthiness of an FPC be evaluated? How is it done now? How should it be reformed? Over to you, Ramanaji.
Yeah, I think one of the fundamentals of any FPOs is the member-centric approach. And Samunnati looks at any community-based organization, especially the FPOs. We follow an approach called AMLA, which is aggregation, market linkages, and advisory services. Because by itself, most of the FPOs at the current stage, they are not in a position to be given, their creditworthiness is there, but I think it has to be, by and large, you have to make them into an asset class, where currently Samunnati is supporting, but we want some more people to come and support that as an asset class. I think that's the whole effort we have been taking. So the first one, if I say aggregation, we look at any FPO in 3 kind of levels. One is a nascent, and then matured, and then very well organized. One of the first thing we look at is the member-centricness. That's where the aggregation comes in. So if the member-centricness is there in the organization, then I think their ability to take a call on any decisions that happens is good. But what we see is a lack of market linkages. And by and large, I think 70–80% of the interventions when we do in these FPOs, it's basically the inputs. But what is more important is the output, which actually happens to be the 70% or 80% of their income. If you were to double the farmer's income, the only way you can do is get the price and the quantities right. So price is something you can do with the market, but how do you do with the production? So what you have to do is the advisory services across the value chain, in the sense that right from production, inputs onwards, their good agriculture practices, and the whole advisory services is the one that you need to work with these FPOs, so that the members at the end of the day get a higher production versus the price through market linkages. And if their participation in the FPO, that's where you count, the turnover of the FPO comes and the member centricness, how many people are actually participating in your FPO. That's what sense that makes sense. But to do this, we actually use some of the tools, especially a grading tool, which we use it. But to even in a most nascent one, when you use it, financial may not be there, governance may not be there, but that is giving us a good understanding of what is the gaps in that institution and which one to address with. And the way it's built, it gives you a lot of parameters and kind of a markers where this organization is. And sometimes we even use it, if it's a very nascent one, it works with you as a baseline. And any improvement you do every year, you run the same tool, it gives you how the impact. So this is giving really a great tool to work on, because first you get a baseline, then you get an impact, then also you see what is the gap analysis, and where do you do the advisory service, or where do you do the capacity building of these institutions. So by and large, our own experience with this is that if you want to really make them into an asset class, what is required is a lot of capacity building, which I'm talking is also of institutional development as a sector and also as an individual, and they are not the same. Each region, each commodity, each agroclimatic zone, it has a totally different kind of they express themselves in a very, very different way. So we need to address these problems in different way. That's where the advisory services will come, because what is in one case, you have to do the technical, in other case is the markets, and other cases maybe infrastructure. So we need to figure it out right way, so that they make themselves into a good progress, and then make themselves into an asset class, and they have to run it themselves at the end of the day. I think that is the approach we have taken. That's where the AMLA, while we give money, but the AMLA is the approach, so that money makes sense to the FPO and they make money out of that money. I think that's my first cut. Let's come back again. Yeah. Padmananji,
thank you, Ramnaji. Let us now move on to Balakrishnan of Vruti. Balakrishnan, what are the best practices in FPO formation that may be adopted in the ongoing implementation of the central sector scheme? And this we mainly ask you is mainly because even during the previous panel discussion, a critical area of concern was the governance issue, meaning how many members of the existing FPOs, maybe about 8,000 or FPOs in the country, are really active. That has always been a cause of concern. So how do we ensure that appropriate members are selected? How do we ensure that members would be, all the members or majority members would be active? Your expert inputs, please.
Sure. Thank you, Padmanand, and really happy to be here with along with other panelists. Very important, I think we have started this journey in promoting farmers producer organization from Vruti. We started in 2010. The experience not only from us and learning from others. What are the things? One is we felt this FPO promotion is about the agency should be, they would like to be playing this program for long term. It is not as a project. That is, we found one of the weakness in the earlier program, where it has been given as a project. The organizations are actually selected from across country. They're not physically there in that state at all, but they have taken the program. Once the program is over, it has been handed over to the FPO. Then post that, it has been, this FPO is not functioning. Yeah. What I mean here is about the CBBOs or the RIs, they need to have the long-term strategy and working with the farmers producer organization. That is the first kind of, which is the best practice is required here, because otherwise these FPOs will be promoted and nobody will be there to handhold and support them in the longer run. Yeah. The second, I think the very important, I think when you were started this conversation, you were talking about the very good, the process, the guidelines have been set out. But when it is implementation level, you are expected to deliver like a machinery, like you put here, the product needs to be out in second month this, the third month is this. You know that we are working with the communities. It takes these things, it requires certain systems and processes to build. This is a business institution. It's not only looking at the social institution. I think there is required of curation process for everything. I think we are looking at very target-oriented approach. I feel that needs to be balanced because we need to scale up to like 10,000 FPO. There needs to be a balancing required in terms of how do we manage to improve, like implement qualitatively, but also ensure the systems and processes are followed on the ground. I think that in the first phase, that's where what you said about the governance part of it. You identify people who are actually vested interest, then they will be in the board. And then there are a lot of issues and challenges when you actually registered and then when it is running. Yeah, that's a second point. I think very important to have the systems and processes needs to be time, and because this is a business institution. The third, which is also required, because many of the times now also it is coming, one district, one product. I feel farmer is a farmer. I think it required a multi-commodity approach. It should not be a single commodity approach, because tomorrow the market demands something else, then the producer organization has to look at some other commodity. I think how do we also build there is something on the multi-commodity, and not only commodity, which is also required allied activities. Today, everyone is talking about circular economy. How do we reduce the value chain and locally, then they can actually produce in terms of, I'm talking about the cattle feed production if it is required. Yeah. Then how do we look at multi-commodity and agri-allied related activities? It happens within producer organization. That is one. And day one, I think, which we need to start about business approach. How do we build that? I think that is very important. It's starting with inputs and also going into other allied activities, plus the financial services and then output marketing. I think the bundle of services which is required to make every FPO sustainable, because large section of our farmers are rain-fed area farmers. Then we should not focus only about the irrigated farmers. Yeah. Then we need to have the multiple services which is there. And very weak so far, which is there. I think it is about the systematic capacity building approach at all level. It is very important. If that is given for every FPO, I think we can expect there is the maximum number of FPOs today will be sustainable. Because in the country today, the self-help groups or self-help group federation we are talking about, because you know that how many years of the money, then the capacity building, the support which has been given to these institutions. The similar kind of approach is required here. Then we are able to build stronger farmers producer organization in the moving forward. The third, I think very important, I think today's world, again, especially in the COVID pandemic, the technology is very important. The day one, the technology to manage the business operation at the FPO level. What are the kind of inventories is there? Then the kind of live data, which is what is the output is coming in. Then they are able to kind of take decisions, and plus also they are able to approach the buyers and the suppliers for various commodities in which they deal. Yeah. Not the least, which also one of the important point, I think we are talking about the FPO can manage themselves. I think it's required today. Amul is running, or any of the cooperative country is running, because there is a people and professional partnership, because it's managed by the professionals and the governance is by the people. How do we build the same thing here if we are not looking at that as a people and professional partnership for long term, making these institutions sustainable and giving the kind of income which is required and all the support required to the farmer? I stop here. Thank you, Padmana.
I think you are on mute, Mr. Padmanabhan.
You are mute.
Yeah, sorry. Excellent inputs, I should say, Balakrishnan-ji. Almost like listening to Dr. Dalwai also. With regard to need to focus on ancillary activities, ancillary incomes like animal husbandry, also on crop residue and crop using of agri waste, that kind of thing. That is one excellent learning that we are deriving from your inputs. Second one is regarding to what many experts now say is introduce now digitization of FPOs. So FPO have a good documents with regard to their production, with regard to their production planning. Only then can they speak to a buyer or to an input supplier. Right now, it is all like ad hoc transactions without a professional approach. So tech enablement and digitization, a very appropriate input, I should say, from a doyen in the field, Ruti. Now let's move on to Shraddha Joshi Sharma-ji, who's Managing Director of Mavim. I should say one of the best performing networks in the country. I remember when we had worked with Joshi in Kudumbashree, we used to say that Kerala was the Kudumbashree award model was the best in the world. They also got to comment with awards, you know. But I think Mavim is going even one up above Kerala and other states, including Andhra. Over to you, madam. What are your critical interventions and support for developing sustainable networks in the farm sector?
Thank you very much, Mr. Padmanand, for acknowledging our work and for having me here. Definitely, as we are all discussing, when we say that we need to build a strong and beautiful structure, then we need to have a very strong foundation for that. So that is what we did in Mavin. We have spent a lot of energy, a lot of time towards making a very, very strong grassroots institutions, that is our self-help groups and their federations, which we call them CMRCs. These are community managed resource centers. So these are working brilliantly, and with the help of these strong and robust institutions, we try to initiate some kind of interventions. If I have to quote some, then first and foremost is the access of finance. Because for farming sector, every time there's a dire need of finances, but they are never bankable clients. And whether this is a small farmer or FPOs or the whole value chain we talk about, finances are really critical issue for all of these. So there are CMRCs have showcased a very, very strong SHG bank linkage model. And if I say, then till now our credit size is around 4,000 crores and NPAs are just 0.5%, repayment rate is 98%, 99%. And in this year also, when we are talking about 2021, this was a very tough year. Even in this year, our credit size is around 800 crores and repayment rate is again 98%. And when I'm talking about my cadre, so most of the women are involved in farming sector. So definitely this was one intervention which we did. And the second thing, above than SHG bank linkage, we have started having value chain finances, especially NBFCs like Samunnati are coming forward for this. Then ME loans also, we are going towards that also. So that is one area of intervention. Other issue, what I want to quote is the knowledge dissemination, because the challenge is expertise, domain expertise is not there. So with the help of various Krishi Vigyan Kendra or various organizations, some domain experts, we try to build up a cadre of Krishi Sakhis, and then we try to inculcate a practice of having and going towards good package of practices. Then other thing was the adoption of good technology and digitization and drudgery reduction. Then I can say post-harvest management was another important sector, because especially when we are working with women, we don't accept their role as post-harvest managers. In initial stages, there also we don't acknowledge her work actually as farmer, but still they are working in initial steps of farming. But if we talk about post-harvest management, then the farmers never accept that a lady can get them best price of their produce. And a lot of middleman issues were there. So in this area also we have worked a lot. Then another intervention was regarding market access. For this, we have created a platform called e-business platform. This we have created with the help of WCD task force. It is in-house, and with the help of this, now we are creating a database of the whole produce, the variety, quantity available, and it is helping us in getting best negotiations and best tie-ups with best of the buyers. So this is again is helping us a lot. And especially during COVID also, like there was a huge demand for urban from urban sectors, urban colonies. They wanted doorstep deliveries, and rural areas, they were having produce, but they were not able to sell because of various issues like transportation and communication issues. So we did integration of rural and urban areas, and we could deliver vegetables, pulses and all with the help of this platform to the urban areas. So that is how some interventions which I quoted are these, and we are doing these things in our organization.
Thank you very much, madam. Very excellently put. We'll now move on to Anish Kumarji from Transform Rural India. What are the best practices in FPO formation, FPO promotion? Anish Kumarji, that you suggest. Formation, we could hear from Ruti. Now, on promotion, what would be your best practices that you think that we could incorporate to the 10,000 FPO program, the government of India.
Thank you very much for this opportunity and for putting this together. This is such an important program, as you said, the largest such program launched in a structured manner. I was looking at in India, we had 4 such waves of promotion of producer collectives, the pre-independence co-ops, and then between the 1950s and 70s, some of it survives, like the boutique ones like Gambira. And the third was when we had large commodity co-ops, dairy, sugar, and which were around regulated industrial commodities, and the logic of collectivization was central to it. And it was also around a very protected economic environment. The third era was after enactment of the producer company, and SFAC pushed the FPO movement. We have 10,000 plus. So we have a lot of learnings across board, and some of it Bala very beautifully captured. And one important thing going forward, particularly for the 10,000 FPO is, and which you also highlighted, a project-based approach will be like in the past, as we have seen, project in and out. So the CBOs will come and CBOs will go, and FPOs will wither away after some time. We have seen in the past that challenge. We have been trying to track these 10,000 FPOs at National Association of Farmer Producer Organizations. We have, managed to get a good hold of what exists there, and it is not a very good picture. So now, if you were to look at some of the high performing, so what is happening there? One that is happening is a very strong focus on member centrality. Second is patronage centrality, and the third is domain centrality. Some of these concepts in the cooperative movement one has talked about for a long time, and when the conditions in which cooperative succeeds. The second is the operating system. You highlighted the digitization. That's a very important area. And the new emerging area around circular economy, regenerative agriculture. Again, it is a very important area. So the key here is whatever you create, how do you draw in the allegiance of the members to the organization? And that is one problem we have seen in the past with these existing 10,000 registered FPOs in various shapes and forms. The problem exists. So what I would say, learning from these, the key things that the implementing agencies and the CBOs need to focus on, first and foremost, is the design, and that is in the promotion. And promotion, I would say, in the pre and inception stage. It is about how you design the business. How do you design for competitive advantage for the FPO? How do you design for member allegiance? How do you solve the 80-20 problem? 20% of the members will be active, 80% will be inactive. That is the principal challenge that I will say that the CBBOs need to engage on. There is, I see, a downward devolution of responsibility. Some of the comments that you had that JS is reviewing. So it is good that they are reviewing. But the problem is, if you have these kinds of smaller FPOs, and in our various conversations with the CBBOs, I realize and you will have a challenge of viability. So one way out of it could be you look at the viability at the CBO level. That is one, in everywhere you're looking at economies of scale as the driver. At the FPO level, the way you have it is too fragmented. The second is, I cannot stress more on the issue of, having a very good operating system, which has professional management, and we have to attend to it. So between the CBO, IA and NPMA, this is one area that you have to attend to. We have to create an ecosystem which addresses the core issues of human resource and governance. The third area that I would like, in the new way we are looking at the FPOs, is to embrace the partnership with private sector. FPOs, the way it is being envisaged, are small, will be fragmented. There, and unless we are able to create a larger economy play, integrate with the value chain, create and build it around a identified subsector, we will find it challenging to sustain it beyond the support that the government is extending. So there, and the CBBO will need to play. The supply of entrepreneurship is willy-nilly going to happen from CBBOs. I've looked at the CBOs. Some of them are very experienced hands. Vruti is here. There are many others who have past experience. I would still urge that, given the lack of business experience there, this is one area of work that between IA and NPMA has to attend to. The surrogate entrepreneurship for the FPOs are going to come from the CBBOs. And that's where the role of the promoters and how they build. So it should become a farmer producer organizations, a promoter centric organization, and we see it, right? It's the promoter unable to move out because it has not evolved. The FPO itself has not evolved. So this is a design issue, and the governance also has to be designed very carefully. You could look at various things. For example, now it is a part of a larger government program. You could look at retired local bankers. You could look at, locally, chartered accountants should be available. There is a capability and information asymmetry around the business that you are pitching in there. You have to, solve this whole issue of governance, the principal agent issue, and CBBOs would play a very critical role. Let's pay more and more attention from the IA and PMA level on the CBBO. That's one big learning we have from all these past 5 phases. And we have a lot of, how should I say it, so many fossils are there that from those fossils, let's learn something to create a living and vibrant organization. So I'll stop here.
I will add one more question to both Balakrishnanji and to Anish, breaking norms, but anyway, is that we had concerns with regarding to a programmatic approach, a deliverable-based contract. What is the option? Either it's a team-based contract or a delivery-based contract. And when we have a large number of CBBOs, hundreds of them now coming in or dozens, how do you monitor? What is the option from the program point of view? Yeah.
Sir, I will, and I would like Bala to come, and he has created a beautiful setup, and he will be able to respond. And similarly, I have created in poultry intent. You see, in poultry, the way we looked at it, you picked up a value chain, and we looked at if you have to intervene. So there could be a 3-member women only. These are women only poultry cooperatives. Today, it is 750 crore business actually this fiscal, and in spite of the COVID, it has. We asked, what are the principal challenges? Can it be solved at a primary cooperative level? That's where the FPO is, 350 or 400,000 members. That's where, we have 32 such organizations. We said, what are the issues? Economies of scale is one issue, right? But it is fragmented. So for a feed, it has to be addressed in a different manner. For chicks, it has to be addressed in a different manner. You have to get into setting up parent farm and hatchery. We have set up the largest feed mill, modern feed mill in MP, and that's where when you go up, the capital intensity increases and you get into a very different set of issues there. But you had a view on the entire value chain and view on entirety of the problem, and you just pick up. So while, and I will agree, you can look at multiple commodities, but look at what Amul has done. And similarly, what we have done in poultry, that's the way forward, where you ask CBBOs to come up with a model which ensures, because at the FPO level, it is not going to sustain. Ask for the CBBO, how is the business looking at? Look at a business plan at the CBBO level that itself will tell you whether there is a long run view or not, and whether one has looked at the fundamental drivers of collectivization. You have to ask the question, what is collectivization unlocking? And where is the distinctive competitive advantage of these FPOs to emerge and for them to be pulled in at the CBBO level? So that is the other way. So you look at outcome, whatever manner you look at it. Key problem you have to solve that the surrogate entrepreneurship is going to be provided by CBO. Anyways, if it becomes in some ways, you just tick off those boxes on the deliverables, we'll have in and out. We have done it in the past. We know that.
Yeah. Thank you, Anishi. We'll come back to this again, a critical area. We'll now move on to Kunal Sood. Kunalji has been, I think, perhaps leading Grant Thornton, the interment, perhaps the largest team in the country in this space, and working with a range of service institutions, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, as well as several government bodies, state government and the central government. Now, is there a difference in the methodology? One is the methodology of intervention proposed and recommended, that is one, and also of assessment. Over to you, Kunalji.
Thank you very much, Padmananji. Hello, everyone. Yes, because of the virtue of working closely with donors, with multilaterals, and with the state government as well as with Government of India, we do have experience both in terms of what are the approaches. But let me start by saying the intent is same. At the end of the day, what are we all trying to achieve is that these small marginal farmers, they have economies of scale. Their productions are market-led. They are able to cater to more profitable markets. So I think there is that common thread, irrespective of what approaches one follows. The second, and I want to give credit to government, because 10,000 FPO program, it's only for Government of India at this scale to conceptualize a program. It's not going to happen. Any multilateral, any other donors or any civil society organizations conceptualizing a program of this scale would not happen. And our country needs development at that scale. So I think all credit to government. But at the same time, I believe there is a lot to learn from the programs that are being led, conceptualized, or the technical assistance that is being provided by the World Bank, by the ADB, by some of the other donors who are active in this space. My own view is, and this is from the experience that we have of working across these programs, the government, they believe that there is a model that needs to be templatized and worked and implementing across for a certain scale, while there is a lot of effort which goes in on a multilateral part so that there are no leaps of faith. So, when there is a clear theory of change, it is not a program where they are only looking at these are going to be the outposts that you register so many, it should have so many numbers. The numbers mean this kind of market linkages. They should have an input shop. They should have custom hiring facilities and those sort. But there is much beyond. Is there an impact on the ecosystem? What are the players that you are partnering with? Is there a local competitive advantage that you're looking at? And I would like to quote a couple of examples. So, as part of our World Bank program, and I must also point out that all our programs, even with multilaterals and the others, they are implemented in partnership with government. They are not independent of government. Everything is done together. But the advantage is that the World Bank programs are reform oriented, or ADB for that matter. They come in with, and they don't mind taking risk. I think that's also something I would really want to point out. There is no fear of failure with some of these programs. They are there to experiment. They are there to try out new approaches, new methodologies, which I think is a disadvantage. And sometimes when you are working directly as a CPBO with the government, where there is clear, there is just no reason why you can fail, and there is absolutely a disincentive to trying out new things. So two examples. One is when we were working with World Bank, another with the ADB. When with the World Bank, and this whole concept was just germinating, especially with the FPOs and FPO promotion, the direct marketing license. So some of the states did not have that, those opportunities and those laws. So it was already foreseen that these challenges would come up. So it's not that you get into formation of FPOs and then you try to address the law which will enable transactions when the FPOs are formed. The second is with Asian Development Bank and Magnet and the program that we have helped design, the financial intermediation piece which has come up. It was already foreseen the FPOs are not the preferred, and we do all realize that eventually FPOs to become bankable is when you believe that they are strong and you have strengthened and the CPBOs have done their job. For that to happen, one has to also foresee from a banker's perspective. The banks are still not ready. Banks will still appraise them like they appraise any other loan account. So in this case, they've come up with the line of credit. They've conceptualized a component which is around financial intermediaries. How do you incentivize them? How do you, at least for a certain value chain or a certain region, experiment with these financial instruments that can be tried out? And if they're successful tomorrow, it's a lesson which can then be learned across 10,000 FPOs. So if I were to summarize what I was saying, I think there are 2-3 points. The intent remains the same. In terms of the methodology, I believe there is far more planning that goes in when it is a program which is sponsored by a donor, a multilateral. But at the same time, I want to give full credit to government for conceptualizing programs of the scale of 10,000 FPOs. And that's what country needs. So I would believe a merger of the two, a marriage of the two is what the country actually requires. And that's happening also. It's not that something, both the players or both the parties are not aware of. It's in more cases than not, it is happening as a partnership. So that's my view on both the approaches that are currently prevalent in the FPO space.
Thank you very much, Kunalji. We'll now move on to Vaibhavji from Ernst & Young, the NPMA for the 10,000 FPO program. So Vaibhavji has an onerous task, many CVBOs, thousands of FPOs, and all kinds of issues and concerns phone calls keep coming from Delhi to the CBBOs ki register ho gaya kya? Three months before the deadline. So फिर क्या mobilize हो गया क्या 3 lakh? That's also 4 months before even the deliverable deadlines. So so that kind of thing is going on anyway. So in a hot seat. So Vaibhavji, as per your inputs, as per your expertise, what do you think are the critical support initiatives that SFAC and NPMA could offer to the number of CBBOs which are being approved? There's in fact a ceiling now, as of now, for not more than 25 FPOs to be allotted to each CBBO. Till date, it may be enhanced data, but there is a ceiling. So we are getting in a lot of CBBOs, expecting that more local resource organizations will be able to deliver after seeing the past also. So are you doing something with regard to that capacity building, training, monitoring, and learning? What are the initiatives in this context? Or what do you think should be done?
Thank you for the opportunity, first of all. And coming to the question, I think, yes, NPMA as well as Ministry and SFAC, we all have very critical role to play here. And some of the pointers which, esteemed speakers have already mentioned are actually, pointing towards entrepreneurship, technology, and governance, which is very critical to, I would rather say that they are the pillars of forming a good FPO, and especially towards running of it. So what we are planning to do, and we are already, we have executed this particular bit, is that we are coming up with online training platform, and which will be audio visual as well as QA based facility, which will be coming up. We are planning to come with an integrated platform which will cater to the existing FPOs as well as the current scheme of 10,000 FPO. And this particular platform will actually dwell into all the aspects, starting from, mobilization, starting from actually the baseline survey at that place to the actual promotion of the FPOs. So all the data would be fed in, and, therefore the technology will be at play. Some of the CBBOs, they have already executed a lot of technology-based tools when they are doing their own baseline surveys. We've been in talks with a lot of such technology service providers as well. And what we are also looking at is, kind of disseminating this particular knowledge base to all the CBBOs that we have currently, and we intend to get them on board going forward. So, the best practices is one that we really need to capture, and we are willing to, disseminate. One. Two is the entrepreneurship thing is very important as far as CBBOs are concerned, because as Anish ji said, it is really critical that a CBBO takes up the role of producing agripreneurs rather than entrepreneurs. So that is where we are actually trying to build capacity, and we have roped in institutions like BIRD, LINAC, NIAM, Manage, and etc., and also looking at other stakeholders who are working on ground and have created a very good institutions. So that is one. And then along with all this, we are also coming up with a toolkit for CBBOs, which will also have the standard operating procedures as far as the scheme goes and as far as our expectations with the CBBO goes. Of course, it is very much aligned to the outputs, the deliverables that CBBO would have along the 5 years of journey with the FPO. And we are also coming up with the FPO assessment tool, which would actually, effectively kind of assess CBBO's effectiveness on the ground. So these are some of the things that we are thinking at the moment, and going forward, definitely there will be a lot of things which will be coming.
Yeah. In fact, again, jumping the gun, one additional question. I cannot keep myself, hold myself back. One question was, I'm sure that there are at least 20 institutions of the who are of global standard and expertise in the FPO space, not to mention any names, 20 of them. Why not allocate, say, 300 or 200 FPOs to each one of them and get it done? Is the objective of the exercise to train the CBBOs over a period of 2 or 3 years, or double income of farmers? I have a very valid question. I'm sure Anishji would also endorse, and same with Balakrishnanji. Is the objective to train and groom CBBOs for 3 or 4 years? That it happens in many programs, national, international. Program के end में consultant का grooming होगा. वो मकसद है क्या farmer को income का double triple करना. So, to you. Why not that approach? Yeah.
So Padmanabhji, I do take your point that we have so many professional agencies coming up as CBBOs, and it is pertinent to bring them on board and take them forward with the program itself. Having said that, I think that is what is going to happen in the future. You also spoke about the 25 FPOs per CBBO limit. That is something to to actually gauge a CBBO, how that CBBO is performing. Of course, the CBBOs, as all of us can see, that it's a forward-looking version of RI. It is much professional body which has come into the play now. So at ground, the question of doubling the farmers' income is definitely will be taken care of by these professional agencies. And when it starts happening along the process itself, I see these CBBOs taking up larger responsibility in the scheme. Therefore, may or may not achieve your numbers of 100 or 200 FPOs per CBBO. So it's more of a challenge which has been posed to all the CBBOs, and whether they are also ready to scale up their performances or not. Because of course, the professional agencies whom you are talking about, they would be ready to take up the challenge and perform.
Yeah. Thank you, Vaibhuji. Excellent. So hopefully there is a focus on filtration as we go on. Thank you. Now, Ramanaji again, the doyen. So we have a lot of experts who often compare dairy FPOs with other FPOs. So is it comparing apple to apple or not? One. And what are the best practices from dairy FPOs that we can imbibe into food crop and horticulture related FPOs? Ramanaji.
Okay. Thank you, Padmanabh. I think this is something we need to understand. That dairy, if you really look at from the inception, Operation Flood 1, 2, 3 actually put in huge amounts of money into critical infrastructure and into value addition of dairy products. I think you should understand that there is a huge amount of money that has gone in building the infrastructure for the cooperatives. Then while the core value chain was working at the cooperative levels, which is the same principles which we are using even today, the core value chain was built by the cooperatives, but the whole ecosystem was built, and simultaneously there is a huge enabling system that was built during Korean's time. What they did was making the whole enabling laws, enabling institutions, like right now what's happening in this particular FPO system. But then the critical infrastructure that went into for value addition of milk has made India, because you had money to pay back to the farmer, and you see from the day I've been now associated for the last 40 years in the dairy sector, the money in the last 2 decades have really made the farmers income higher, almost double kind of stuff, for 2 reasons. One is the milk is also going into some kind of a value addition one side. The second one is the farm incomes have come down. So farm incomes have come down. Dependency on the farmer to farm to allied has something that made the farmers taking dairy as a business. So I think if you were to do the similar concept, so 3 principles. One is the core value chain is very totally integrated. There is an enabling environment, and there's a total support system, right from veterinary, feed, and all those systems were actually captured. That's what Ashish was saying about the poultry. That's the second evolution I've seen, where the whole product got totally integrated. Because they addressed the market, so support systems were created. There was an enabling environment which actually was in favor of the sector. So if you were to do the same thing in FPOs today, I think we need to select about 3-4 critical commodities in agriculture, which has either export potential or a domestic value addition potential, whether it is going to the industry or whether it's going for export market. So those are the places, like you developed your industries. You need to put this critical infrastructure by the government. While you spend the money on developing the FPOs, those critical infrastructure has to be done. And I think enabling systems and laws being enacted, yes, there will be oppositions, but I think over a period of time, people will understand once the system starts working. But what's more critical is, like Ashish talked about, the total DOC for a poultry value chain or a feed. You need to figure out all the support systems in that particular value chain has to be totally, right from financing to developing them as a supply to support the main core value chain is something. I think that's where Samunnati, the way they're looking at is the value chains. Today they work about more than 52 value chains. So start looking at each product as a value chain as a whole, then start supporting the whole value chain so that it starts operating at a higher equilibrium so that you generate more money. That's where you get it back to the farmer. Otherwise, there is no other way. So dairy way you can do, but certainly I'm saying with emphasis that we need to spend money on lot of stuff like post-harvest, critical infrastructure, government, or whichever money that like Operation Flood, you can call it green flood, whatever it is. But that has to come in to make those value chains operate higher. Maybe it's a drying, it is the cleaning, it is the value addition processes, whatever it is. But you start looking at the commodity wise, because while multi-commodity approach is good, but each commodity operates in its own value chain. So I think that's the way we need to go about. If you really ask me, it can be done, but we need to look at the critical infrastructure, and the support system will be fully have to be operational with an enabling environment. That's
Thank you very much, Ramanji. Excellently put. So it's the ecosystem that we again come back to. Right. Balakrishnanji, we are running out of time, so we just give 1 minute for your question. Is there a checklist on formation of an FPO? It may be a bottom-up approach. It may be a top-down approach. Identify a leader, the leaders identify the group, or you do it at the village level aggregation. They elect the leader. What would you recommend, or is there no approach at all? How do we ensure a good FPO is formed?
Yeah, no, one is, I think, very important. We feel it's about bottom-up approach, because the community ownership, we are looking at it here. Then we need to look at the nurturing of the primary groups, which has been in this one of the pillar is there, but I'm not sure how importance is being given there. I think we need to look at how do we build and nurture the primary groups from the village. And there, I think, which is also how do we selected and elected by the groups of the right leaders who comes into the BOD. That's one, I think, which needs to be focused. The second, I think, expectations, because the farmers always, they say that inputs are available for them. When the FPO is formed and then SAR money is collected, they look at the marketing part of it. Yeah. If that is not happening for some time, that will become a challenge. But I think from the day one, how that output marketing is also takes place, how that system needs to be, planned very well. Yeah. And the third, very important in this thing is that least bothered of everyone is that about legal and statutory compliance of the producer company. Because of that, many companies, they are not able to pay the penalty. They have to actually wind it off because they don't have their own share capital, not able to meet the penalties amount. Yeah. This is the situation. Then I think, how do we give importance for the legal and statutory compliance part of it? And how do we, because one more, what's happening when it's become CBBO or RI, there is always tussle between when you appoint a CEO. First year is with whatever RI, then second year onwards it's with FPO. The board and then CEO, there is how do we manage that very well? If that is not managed, there also it's becoming a lot of turnover within the staff of the FPO that is getting affected. I think right kind of professionals and then nurturing the governance, then they are able to work together and then make the FPO works for the community.
In fact, Balakrishnanji, one additional question to you, but a quick answer. One is, under the World Bank projects and the ADB projects, there is no CEO. The chairman themselves are supposed to take the leadership ownership, because everywhere we find this problem. CEO manager is there 1 year, he is there 6 months. When he is groomed or the project is over, he jumps. So there is no way we can really ensure loyalty to a CEO thing. So until capacity building of the chairman or BOD is done, वो होता ही नहीं है. So World Bank project where we've done, we train 10 BODs 10 times a year, short duration MBA programs, business planning, credit and all that. Is that the way out, or should we still depend on the CEO manager approach? That is one. Second one is with regard to marketing. Have you ever found be in touch with an FPO who deals with a single buyer? So should our focus be on alternate markets over intervention, linkage to alternate markets, because nobody fixes the price. Mother Dairy will not say that what price they're going to buy your commodity. They may buy it at 10 rupees less than market, they may buy 10 rupees more. They say that we'll give you all the inputs, we'll give you the support, but ultimately if you're buying from you, whatever price we offer, you sell, otherwise you go elsewhere. So most of our market connect, it is with alternate markets. Would you recommend that, or you deal in a long-term relationship, almost in a contract farming sort of thing, between one large player and a buyer? What would you recommend, or we cannot recommend anything, it will be very specific? Two questions.
Yeah, no, one is for the CEO thing. I feel it's required professionals because it's a certain level the FPO can grow, but we are looking, there is a vision is larger for the FPO, what we wanted to see. I think in that case, and that one FPO cannot achieve, but how do we also build the ecosystem? Then that continuous guidance to that CEO also, because the CEO, we are identifying the local person who is not having that distance market or what's happening in the environment, he or she may not be aware. I think how do we build that ecosystem? Then this can actually go for a long time and then it can sustain.
Yeah.
Second, we believe as Vritti, we look at it, it is about multiple marketing channel is very important. But one is about local, the traders are available in every locality. How do you also identify those people and then link, and then also the multiple market channel? One you maybe use in what you call ENAM, or you use other new modern players have come in. All these channels, I think, which needs to be adopted. I don't see one channel. It doesn't give. It is also reducing the risk for the FPO, which needs to look at the diversifying the marketing channel.
Thank you, Balkrishan. Shraddha ji, one good case study on your best network, meaning in terms of their operations, in terms of turnover activities. In brief, please.
Yeah, sure. As we are talking about doubling of farmers' income, so I'll quote one such project, which is known as Disha. This we have done with the help of UNDP and IKEA Foundation, and this was done in the Vidarbha area of Maharashtra. Districts covered were Yavatmal, Akola, and Amravati. This was a Tur Dal pulses value chain project. And we had changed a little bit of our strategy, the way we used to work earlier, and we could achieve almost double the income at the end of the project. So in short, if I need to present, then I would say initially what we did was just we identified the gaps which were present. So these were regarding absence of domain knowledge, then input cost was huge. Middleman problem was very high, aggregation problems were there. So accordingly, one major step which we did was creation of a cadre of women sourcing managers. So these women sourcing managers, they actually became a resource person for the whole project, and they helped functioning as honest middlemen. So I can say that we had created a cadre of honest middlemen in this project, and this has helped a lot. And our CMRCs, the federations, they worked as aggregation centers for these for their produce, farmers' produce, and they did collection, aggregation, grading, sorting kind of things. And another important aspect which we saw in this project was talking to the private players from the very first point. So what we do generally, we go from farm produce to market kind of direction. In this project, what we did was we first saw the market and then we went towards our farmer side. So the problem was they were not able to get the benefit of their scale, what they had. And private partners were asking for quality as well as a good scale. So both the things we had tabbed in this program. And I think initially the farmers were getting around 3,600 to 4,000 metric ton for their produce. And at the end of this project, they could achieve almost 7,000 to 8,000 per metric ton for their produce. So that's it from my side.
Beautiful, madam. So thank you very much for that case study. We'll be documenting it later on extensively. Yeah. Now, Anishji, we had an important question. Now, we have been studying, hundreds of FPOs across the country, both as part of the ranking exercise, rating exercise, and many other initiatives. We keep writing books, that kind of thing. What we find is a typical FPO, 4 or 5 years old, they may be having a turnover of 4 to 5 crores. 1.5 crore will be input shop operation. 3 crores or 4 crores will be market operations. 10 lakhs or 15 lakhs would be seed production income sources. So meaning input and market is the typical revenue mix. Market, they may be charging 1% service charge, whatever it is. Input, they may be charging even 10%, they may be keeping, or 5% of the total 20% that they get as benefit. So what do you think is the ideal mix of activity? This is putting in very crude terms of an FPO, which is just about, we can call them an infant or teething FPO, 4 to 5 years old and doing well. I'm sure there are hundreds of such FPOs who we have studied also, 300, 400 of them personally. Matching figures, yahi nikalta hai. 3 to 4 crore turnover, 1.5 crore input shop, 3.5, 4 crore marketing, baki chota mota 10-20 lakh. So is this the kind of model we are looking at, or is there something else?
ये सर जो आपने बोले ना, ये तो बहुत अच्छा होगा ऐसा ना, हो रहा है 400-500 FPOs भी इस तरह का है. तो I would say that we have really shown resilience of the FPO system. We partnered with at NAFPO. We partnered with VAF to do a study, and I was surprised to find the biggest income was input, and the second was training and capacity building from various government programs. Training and capacity building was coming in as a revenue. I was quite surprised by that, and this was a staggering 67% of the group. So if they have moved on, you see, again the key question to answer is what is collectivity and unlocking. So on the input side, there is this old theory of counterpoise. You see, there is no advantage of the FPO on inputs. Any input dealer will beat them. On the aggregation side, if they are doing MSP procurement, there is an right away advantage. Or they are doing procurement, say they are running a big basket PC. There is there is a value addition. So basically what you are doing is you are creating a transportable and marketable lot at FPO, which was as a fragmented producer you were unable to do, and now that is being created. And then you connect with something. You see, that is the key element I would again re-emphasize is what is that you connect on the forward side. See, DCS, you look at dairy, DCS is not viable. If you had DCS only, DCS without the union and without the marketing fed, all three together. And that's how we have learned in the dairy sector also, and I like that.
Absolutely.
Now the mix that you are saying, and another organization that I'm associated with is the Foundation for Development of Rural Value Chains. And these are promoting under National Rural Economic Transformation Project, large size producer companies. What is the effort there? There the effort is to change this mix. One is, look at aggregation and processing. So we are saying there has to be a value add, and the value add can't just be aggregate and connect it to some trade channel. There is some value add, definitely a special value add is there, but there has to be a value add in terms of form. And unless you do that, you will not be able to climb up the value chain. So that is one critical element. So if you were to ask me for these small size FPOs, I would say first to look at what is the second tier you create, and the NPA and IA should look at creating. For example, if NAFED is able to do the off-taking, why should the 2025, even if there are 25, look at them together. If you are looking at them together, you look at 20,000, 25,000 farmers. Then only it will be viable. So look at it. That is the first suggestion I have. Second suggestion I have is at that level, you will be able to create some kind of a processing. And that is any kind of a processing, some sorting, grading, cleaning, packaging. Today you have with the in the last year, the COVID period, you have seen how farm to consumer linkages have now big players. Tatas have invested in big basket, and then similarly you will have Ninja Carts. Ninja Cart is going deep down to villages. We are having conversations with them for Chhattisgarh, interior Chhattisgarh, and Madam has already talked about in what Mavi has done. I am familiar with that work. So let's build the forward and linkages right down, leverage the e-commerce opportunity, do some processing and aggregation, and the mix has to be built around that. Input is in an infant, it is okay. You are working on all fours, so it is okay. Do in inputs also if it is all fours. But if you want to move out of inputs, I know many FPOs which have been destroyed by this input. It is a very sophisticated business, management of inventory, the size of the inventory itself, and you start handling with feed, fertilizer, seeds. And I know this problem with very large FPO promoters. I know the problem. Yeah. If you see germination problem, you can't go to the village. Don't get into it. It's a problematic area. Yeah. Instead of that, the value add, because there are so many players already there. The value add will be in aggregation, processing, and forward link. So I'll stop here, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Very beautifully put, Anishji. Thank you. Kunalji, over to you. So most of the experts are in favor of an ecosystem approach rather than a project mode delivery-based approach. Would you like to say or give some more inputs on this, please?
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's what all of us would agree who are part of the thing. Unless we build the ecosystem, all these will remain ad hoc and will not achieve the end objective or the end outcomes that we are targeting. But very clearly, I think one piece, and that's the only piece I want to highlight, taking a cue from what Anish has also mentioned, is the market. So, wherein this ecosystem is the buyer, customer, consumer. There's so much effort on building capacities, building FPOs, having CPBOs, but how many of them have actually identified a buyer? How many of them have actually established a partnership with someone who's coming forward saying, in this region, with these many thousand farmers, I am going to work and I'm going to develop. And wherever we have done this, I want to specifically mention the work we did with Souffle. I hope that's okay to name that corporate. But they've done good work in Rajasthan with us, and it was beneficial for them because they were not getting the quality barley that they wanted for processing. At the same time, farmers benefited tremendously, and it has just transformed those clusters. I would just want to stop and only focus on productive partnerships. How do you bring customers upfront? Do not stop at only registering FPOs. Do not stop at just building capacities of the BODs unless you already have identified. So, I mean, that's where I would want to stop. Just cannot overemphasize the role that the buyer plays in this ecosystem. There is no ecosystem without the market.
Absolutely. Perfectly put. Now to Vaibhavji. Vaibhavji, one last question and a quick question, and then we'd have two questions for all the experts. Any specific learnings or corrective actions being taken over program implementation over the last few months? It's only a few months since the program's rolled out, the 10,000 FPO. Any learnings, any corrective action? Vaibhavji.
Yeah, I think as far as, inclusion of BODs and, the kind of people that we actually need for our FPOs, that has been very critical. And so over there, we are working to roll out the guidelines to all the CBBOs, FPOs that, how to choose their BODs. Yeah, so that is one thing that we are undertaking currently, and we'll be rolling it out soon. Second one, I think we already discussed about the the limitation of 25 FPOs per CBBO. So yeah, I think those are the two things till date, because as you said that there's been 3-4 months only that we have rolled out the scheme.
So thank you all. I think we run out of time. Thank you everybody. I think the major highlights which I could flag out from the discussion is with regard to the need for an ecosystem-based approach, and not focus only on output, but on impact, outcome and impact. That is one. The second major issue is the need for partnerships, private sector, corporate, small farm, NGO, resource institute, CBBO, and the farmer. Ensuring this is done effectively. It may be 100 different stakeholders who are involved. And maybe the CBBOs and RIs and institutions supporting festivity to work together also. Build and evolve, use their relative strengths and competencies where required appropriately. And the next issue is with regarding to the need for digitization and the need for looking at an FPO, not only as a commodity-based organization, meaning a crop-based organization in the current context of 10,000, but crop, animal husbandry, and other allied activities also. I think this would be the 3 or 4 excellent inputs by all of you experts. So thank you very much on behalf of Economic Times, Samunnati, and Grant Thornton.
Thank you very much.